first off, for you, just obviously it's not the first time we've seen Tommy, but it's the first time you're playing him. How was it being one of the new kids on the block alongside veterans like Jamie, Kyle, Nancy, Charles, who all came
Yeah,
back for this?
well, that's a great setup. Thank you for that question. It's incredible. I mean, I've never experienced this feeling, Brian. I tell you, to be a part of such a beloved franchise, the closest thing that I can say in my career was The Dark Knight, and I had a nice
Mm,
small role in that, but it was a good one. But this is a phenomenal thing. And I think it's the combination of the two things that I keep going back to is, the quality of this team, the great people involved. David is really an amazing guy. He's just so affable and likable and nice and easygoing. So he makes it a pleasure to work with. He's very fluid in his process. So you might get great ideas and feedback. And he's always seeking that out from his crew members that are really friends, because he and
mhm.
Danny have employed a lot of these guys and the men and women of their crew for 15 years. So they have a really tight knit group, but just a fun guy to work with. He was really a great pleasure. And so I had a blast. We shot it 2 years ago. I just was really
Crazy.
struck by the fact that they gave me this sort of hero part, this great role. But in reflecting upon it and preparing for this tour, it's really the case for all the townspeople, right? Everybody gets to make this kind of heroic turn from victims or survivors to fighters, and and
Hmm.
and really kind of fulfilling all of our parts in this bigger macro world that he's created. And it's that classic kind of good versus evil theme, which I think always works. So it's
Yeah.
Strode versus Myers once again. But it was a great pleasure, honestly, working with all these amazing, strong, talented women and men, behind and on camera. It was just an incredible experience. So it's that nice thing of like, you have a product that you're really excited about, and there's a great audience really waiting for the film to be released. And that's very exciting too, man. Yeah.
And I mean, coming into this, I guess, how well versed in the Halloween franchise were you? I know everyone has seen the original, everyone saw the most recent
Right.
one, but between some of them lost people along the
Well, I
way.
got to be honest with you. That's what I had seen as well. I had seen the
Okay.
original, and I saw the 2018 version with my wife in theaters a couple of years back. And but what's been very interesting with the delay is it's given me time to really plug into the franchise fan universe.
Hmm.
And as you know better than I, they are very specific, man. They can tell you about the mask,
Right.
all the men that have played Myers, all the details, the different timelines, what you thought of the zombies versions, or if you did like them, or if you did like them. So it's an amazing fan base. So I'll be very honest, Brian, what I've done for the last year and a half is not unlike what all the fans have done. Like, I'm on YouTube every day. I'm looking for reaction videos to the
Hmm.
trailer, to the test screenings a year ago. So I've been very hungry for all that feedback, man. So that's what makes this very exciting, is that we're going to unleash it on the world now. So it's really
Yeah.
cool. And I'm pumped. I couldn't be more excited about it, honestly.
Good. You should be.
Yeah,
And,
man. Thanks.
I know you did another interview where you said David Gordon Green said he got a text from Paul Rudd, just kind of
Yeah,
giving your blessing. Did you
right.
ever even try to think of watching his film, his version of Tommy? And did you yourself ever hear from him?
I did not myself hear from him, and it was very nice to get his blessing. I didn't know he lived at the Vatican, but it was very good to hear. No, he's a great guy, and I've never had the pleasure of meeting him, but I've always admired his work. Again, another person who has great range. He can go from
Yep.
comedy to drama. And I did see it. Was it Six that he was in? Yeah, I saw
Six.
that
Yeah.
recently. It was very cool. Had a very interesting elements, and a different take on it. So I'm kind of
Oh,
glad I didn't
very.
see it at first. Yeah, because he's very kind of professorial in the role. Right? It's very interesting.
And
But
I'm curious
he's
for you,
cool.
because I know you haven't done that a ton of like big studio horror yourself. I know you did The Dead
Yeah,
Zone, you've done horror films, but
right.
I'm curious for you when you were coming up, if there were maybe horror roles that maybe you were considered for or passed up on, just because the 80s was such a time for, teen
Yeah,
slashers.
yeah.
It seems like maybe you could have fit in some of them.
That's a good question. To be honest, Brian, that didn't happen. Unfortunately, it
No.
didn't. I think because I was so associated with the comedies of John Hughes. But
Yeah.
I appreciate that question. Yeah, that they weren't looking my way then in the 80s. What I refer to as the puberty on film trilogy that I started with
Hmm.
John Hughes. But John Hughes, ironically, I've told a lot of people this too. A lot of David's natural qualities remind me of John in many ways, like a natural
Mm.
born, gifted writer, as is Danny, of course, and a great comedian. I love Danny. But I also feel like just a gifted director and filmmaker, but also there's a wholesomeness, a niceness, a good quality, a good heart in him. And he's just a great guy to work with, and he's very fluid. He keeps it fluid too. You might get great ideas from the crew or the actors, or it could be the sound guy. You never know where the best idea is going to come from. That was very impressive to me too, that he sees it as something, it's a work in progress, and he's willing to dismiss things if they don't feel right or if they're not working. He's also apt to throw things at you. So a lot of times he would just throw in dialogue that came to him on the top of his head. The thing with the bat, for example, was David's idea. He just thought I should have a weapon. I went, let's go, man. I'm all in,
Right.
So the huckleberry became my weapon of choice, So all these great, aspects of who he is, but in many ways reminded me of John Hughes. Yeah.
And I mean, obviously this movie gives Jamie Lee a chance to revisit a role she played 40 years ago. Is there one from your resume early years that you would love to see, revisit, see what they're up to now?
I'm very flattered by this question, and I have been asked that in the last 2 days, but
I'm sure.
I think, John's films are kind of standalone. And what I will tell you is the last time I got a chance to speak to the late, great John Hughes, he called me in 1987, Brian, and he called me with John Candy on the phone. If you imagine, I was just like on the other end, like, exactly. That was my reaction. Like, wait a minute, they're both calling me right now. What happens is after he did The Great Outdoors with Candy, they really became fast friends. And that film was kind of sprung from that because they literally would take vacations together, the Hughes family and the Candys. So he did bring it up on that call when we spoke that day. John was toying with the idea of doing a sequel to The Breakfast Club, so kind of seeing them all in their middle age. Now, as fate would have it, I co-produced a film this summer called The Class, which is from a fantastic script by a writer-director named Nick Solozzi, who's out of Chicago. And I went back to Chicago to make this film. And this time I play the assistant principal. So that's forthcoming, but I would have never even entertained that idea if this new project wasn't so great. But back to Hughes, it wasn't his thinking. He was thinking about that potential all those years ago. And sadly, that was the last time I spoke to he or Mr. Candy, but that one was in his mindset. He was thinking about that one.
Well, we'll keep an eye out for yours, at least.
Thank you, Brian.